All right, awesome. Okay, so welcome everybody. This is Brian Johnson. With me, I have the lovely Erica Garza. Thank you, Erica, for joining me today. Today, we're going to be talking about how to build your brand with Amazon DSP. Now, we both realize, of course, is that there's a number of you who are going to be on this workshop that are not familiar with DSP. That's okay. We're going to try to bring it down. We're going to offer some Q&A here at the end as well. But this is going to be, we're going to move fast. Some of this information might be a little bit dense, and that's okay. But I do want you to get exposed to this because as Amazon's second ad platform, it is important that you know what you need to take advantage of in 2021, okay? This is something that certainly Canopy Management, our agency, works on a daily basis for our partners, for our clients. And this is something that we know has huge value. We've seen some great success as far as growth with those partners. And we want the same for you. And we want to make sure that you're aware enough about what it entails so that you know, hey, you know what? Now is the time for me to jump on this. It's appropriate for my brand, for the size of my products, all of that. So we're going to cover a lot of different things here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to invite you, certainly make sure that you have your chat window open because we're going to do a couple things. We're going to do a couple of polls here starting out, and then we are going to also get there's going to be some interaction with you. So I do expect everybody who's on the call to participate. Otherwise, why are you here for the training, right? So welcome, Erica. Thank you so much for joining us here.
Of course. Glad to be here. Always love hopping on calls with you.
Cool. Excellent. Just want to make sure everybody's okay. So I might be Alexa be a little bit loud. Maybe what I should do is back off my microphone so that Zoom will automatically balance the audio better.
Yeah, well, I'll get a little bit closer here. You know, once I get ramped up, I tend to get louder as I get excited and kind of nerd out over this stuff. So I'll definitely get louder as we go.
Very good. Let's go ahead and start out. We've got a couple of polls we want to introduce here first. Alex, I don't know if you want to jump in and put those polls up for everybody who's on here currently, so we can kind of get a pulse. We want to find out as far as where you're at in your business so that we're speaking the right message so that you get everything out of this that you can today. So if everybody can participate in these polls, I'd really appreciate it. It's going to make it much clearer as far as our delivery. Awesome. Love it. Fantastic.
Wow.
Come on, let's get over 75%. There we go. Almost there. Come on. There's a few of you left. Come on. Okay, I just need a couple more here. There you go. There you go. Awesome. We did it. Awesome. Thank you so much. All right. So the question, of course, here was, do you currently advertise off of Amazon, including like DSP, social, Google, Facebook, that kind of stuff? And it was about a split, right? So there's about, looks like about 55-60% of you have done some kind of advertising off of Amazon. So that's good to hear. It's got a great mix. It's kind of what I was expecting. Awesome. All right. Alex, do we do the second and third ones right away? That's the question here. Yes. Okay. So the second one, we got 3 of these. Okay. So thanks for sticking with me here. We got more people rolling in, so we get a higher percentage. Why did you sign up for this webinar? What do you want to get out of Amazon DSP? Certainly ready to grow, want to explore off Amazon advertising option, all awesome. Maxed out sponsored display, yeah, absolutely. Want to learn more about DSP. So let's get some, look at that. I was actually expecting it to be fairly balanced, but it's really leaning heavy on just one of these. All right, let's get a couple more. Okay, there we go. All right, cool. We got, what do they call it? Quorum. All right, so it looks to me like, yeah, Biden won. No, I'm kidding. No, so as far as the voting goes, looks to me like a lot of you wanted to learn more about Amazon DSP. Don't have any specific goals, which is exactly kind of how we set this up. Now, I can tell you right now, kind of what I was mentioning earlier, is that Erica is we consider she's very advanced when it comes to Amazon DSP platform, which is the demand side platform, right? You hear me talking about all the time as far as like sponsored product ads, sponsored brand ads, sponsored display ads, and then and then all your competitors are saying, it's like, yeah, we use DSP, and you're like, hey, hold on, should I be doing this? Well, this is the webinar for you. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to do some summary information, kind of bring you up to speed as far as some of the definitions. And then we're going to go dense, and that's okay because you can always watch the replay, right? And we're also going to do some Q&A, right, Erica, at the end? Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
We're going to move fast on this here. All right, so I think we have one final poll here, Alex, right? Alex put a good reminder of there is that we in the chat there that we do typically post the replay for 24 hours. We pull those in about a week. So just FYI, if you see it, jump on it. All right. So how much do you spend per month on Amazon advertising? This is essential because it kind of tells as far as whether or not what level you're at, because there's going to be some considerations in the way that we teach this that are going to be based off of what kind of ad spend you have per month currently with your advertising outside of the demand side platform, outside of DSP. So let's see if we can get some more input on this. All right, a little bit more. Let's try to get everybody's participation on these. I love the fact that we're getting such a high participation. Love that. A little bit more. Come on, just a few more of you there. Jump into the poll here. Go ahead and make your vote, and then we'll get moving on. Call them out by name. That's when also you get a drop off. All right, just a couple more here and that'll do it. All right, so kind of what I was expecting here. You see the poll right on the screen here. You should see the slide. Now, I want to make sure everybody can see the slide. This is how to build your brand with Amazon DSP, and you should see the poll. The poll is now closed, actually. So the idea was expecting a split here where a majority of you, I was expecting like both a high and a low. That's pretty much what we got, right? So I love to see that kind of range here. Interesting that nobody's in the 10 to 15,000 per month gap. Everybody's either higher or lower. Kind of interesting gap here as far as the standard deviation, the spread there. So, all right. So Erica, that kind of gives you a little bit of idea as far as we basically have a split audience as far as those who have and have not advertised off Amazon. Those who are probably at a level where they're going to continue to do the standard advertising, and they kind of want to know. I think one of the questions that's going to be begged here is like, at what point in my monthly ad spend should I be ready for a DSP? A lot of you, if you've ever talked to Amazon, you know that their bar is about $35,000 minimum ad spend per month. Well, fortunately, we're going to tell you that there's a much better solution for that. We'll save that toward the end. But I'm going to hand things over now to Erica. Who's ready for Erica to get started on this and jump into the weeds, into the details on this? Give me a 1 in the chat box, if you will. I know it's like I make you make 3 polls and then give a 1. Awesome, cool. Todd says, let's do it. Excellent. Okay. All right, let's go ahead and all right, let me close out the poll there. And Erica, it's all you.
All right. Awesome. Awesome. So glad to see a good turnout today. So let's get to it. How to build your brand with DSP. This is going to be a masterclass for you guys. Quick masterclass. So we'll scroll through here. Of course, we do partner with multi-million-dollar sellers, top Amazon execs. So if you are looking to grow your brand, definitely get in touch with myself for more DSP info, and with Brian after the call today. We'll cover this again at the end. And a quick intro for Brian, as you all know, BRJ, and for me as well. So I'm a DSP strategist here at Canopy, and manage DSP for many top brands, helping them reach their goals by expanding their brand and increasing their sales, Previously, I was in the Austin startup scene, but that's another story. Now I'm all DSP. So how to build your brand. Let's get to it. So we're going to cover how to leverage Amazon's first party data. So this is your competitive advantage over other sellers, even over other marketing channels like YouTube or Facebook. It's a little bit different. The competitive advantage here is that only Amazon has data that you can use to target all over the web. So this is really crucial. We'll talk more about that in just a second. Also want to dive into and pull back the curtain so you can see exactly how we're measuring results and what the reporting looks like. If you're already doing, and it looks like a majority of you are, marketing off of Amazon, you know that there is a bottleneck of reporting. There's an issue of attribution. You're spending money, but where is it going, right? It's kind of the marketing black hole. The benefit, your second competitive advantage by using Amazon's DSP is you know exactly how it performs and you can really drill down specifically into the data. So if you guys like data, if you like reporting, if you like knowing how your dollars are being spent and how that turns into revenue, then we'll cover that too. And then lastly, we'll do a quick check. I have a checklist to see if you're ready for DSP. For those of you that are already running DSP, I would be open to chat and see if there's any gaps that we can fill for you. We can do an audience audit to see if there's other segments and gaps that we can help you target. So that is the plan for today. So before we get too far ahead, I just want to cover some key terms to make sure that we're all on the same page here. So what is programmatic advertising anyway? Before this webinar, you probably looked online and saw a lot of different terms, programmatic this, etc. Basically, we are the demand side platform. So we buy ad placements from multiple exchanges. They are the supply. So it's basic supply and demand economy here. We demand the ad inventory. We buy it from several different exchanges that give us access, and then they display the ads online. So that's essentially it. We won't drill down too much. We want to talk about how this works and why this is even important to you guys. But key takeaway, that first party data and brand building. So demand side platform. Couple things that we can do with this. So unlike social media or unlike Amazon PPC, where you're locked into just that one channel, right? So with DSP, you get control over your reach, right? You get to choose which placements on Amazon that you can display ads to. You get to choose which sites you display your ads to and which exchanges. So that gives you a lot of control over your ad spend and control over where your brand is displayed. So if you are maxed out on your sponsored display inventory, if you're maxed out on Amazon placements, if those keywords are getting expensive, you may want to consider expanding into DSP, where there's a wealth of inventory as you have access all over the web. And just as an example, a couple placements would be Washington Post, BuzzFeed performs very well, New York Times, the Weather Channel actually converts very high, and Yahoo and MSN. So just to kind of start thinking big, these are the different placements that you can get into. As far as targeting, the way that we increase your reach and do it scalable and we're smart with it is the first party data. So the competitive advantage against the other big players like Google and Facebook is they know what you like, they know what you're posting, they know different groups that you're in, and Google knows what you search, but Amazon's the only one that knows what you're buying, right? So it's the only channel with that inside information that Amazon's DSP is specifically designed for sellers and for e-commerce sellers, okay? If you're running Google ads, I would strongly consider using DSP so that you have access to tap into the inventory and to the targeting. So that leads us to scaling profitably. If you have the first two in place, you're able to scale. What I mean by that is you can grow your brand rapidly, okay? We're talking about massive growth, rapid growth from 1 to 3 months, okay? So you can drive traffic to really anywhere you need. If your website, your Shopify store needs additional traffic to drive conversions, We can send traffic there. We can drive it to your Amazon store if you just launched a new page. We can drive it to a detail page for a new product launch. So there's a lot of flexibility and control where you can scale very quickly. Yeah.
Ask you a question on that, Erica. So would you say, is it based on your experiences that we typically do get higher conversion rates by pointing that traffic back to Amazon again? Because
Yeah.
it does typically get a higher conversion rate than other platforms. Does that hold true with DSP?
Absolutely, yes. So we want to drive traffic back to Amazon because you can see that conversion. You can see it much more accurately in the reporting that we have. Absolutely.
Okay.
Awesome. Cool. So that's kind of what's possible with DSP. Let's go into how this all works together and how to get started. So again, it's just really important to reiterate that you can use the data to build full funnel strategy and do it profitably, okay? So you want to reach your audiences on the web, but we want to do it at scale. We're talking about scaling up very large. So a couple examples. If you're in this situation, then if these apply to you, then this is going to work for your brand. So if you have low sessions on a particular product, if you're needing a mechanism to drive traffic, right, either to your website, of course, to Amazon, because it's going to be a higher conversion and it's easier to track. If you need additional placements, perhaps you've already maxed out specific bid on a keyword and you're just not willing to increase that spend, you're needing new placements, it's time to look into the DSP on Amazon placements and then expand your reach outside of that. So again, we're looking to grow and to scale. So real quick, let's just cover some of the differences from PPC and the DSP space. Because I know that a lot of you are coming from that PPC background. So just to make that shift, you do not necessarily have to be a seller on Amazon. That's not a requirement. We do recommend it. We're an Amazon agency, and the reporting lends itself to more accuracy if you're already an Amazon seller. And of course, with the data, it just makes sense, but that's not necessarily a requirement. So if you're dabbling in other brands or maybe working in services, you can also explore DSP. And the ad placements are charged via CPM. So that's cost per 1,000 impressions rather than pay per click, because we're moving into the web. It's a massive space and it's not click heavy because you're interrupting someone's, they're reading a blog, they're checking the weather channel. They may or may not click, but we are driving them to your detail page. So typically, since the journey isn't linear, they'll see the ad, they'll go to Amazon, they'll search, and that's going to help your organic search. So you'll get a little bit of lift from traffic driven by DSP. So one big difference when you're looking at reporting, you can look at clicks. We do include it, but you pay per 1,000 impressions. And the CPMs are fairly low.
I would say a good example of that is in most sales environments, including e-commerce, there's usually multiple touch points. It's not always as easy as somebody searches, says, oh, I want to buy something. They search and they pick the first thing they see. It's usually a case of they're kind of shopping around a little bit. Maybe they don't make a decision today, but they're out on other websites off of Amazon and they are moving around. And of course, this is an example of these are the kind of ads that, you've seen those where they kind of follow you around to different websites. That's pretty much what these are producing from an external display ad standpoint. Now, the reason why pay per 1,000 or pay per impression is important because we want that ad to be shown as many times as we can to an audience that has shown some kind of interest or is in our target audience, because we know that it may take them seeing that ad 2 or 3 times, 10 times, maybe even before they actually click through and make a decision. We don't want to limit that until they've had enough exposure. It's kind of like billboards. You pass by them every day, and it's not until you really need one or you're making a decision, you're like going, oh, you know what? I remember there was a dashboard or there was a billboard on this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, that's the customer journey. It's very nonlinear. So yeah, it's standard display. It's just have to make that mental shift when you're looking at reporting. So just kind of going back to the differences here, they're placed all over the web, like we talked about earlier, and you can direct traffic essentially anywhere you want traffic to, send it to a landing page if you're doing a new product launch, send it to your website. and of course, back to Amazon to your exact detail page. So that's the power of using the first party data for ASIN retargeting. You can direct it right to your detail page, and those typically convert much higher. So that's usually where we start with our strategy. And then most importantly, how do you get started with DSP? So this is something that we can run for you. The other option is to go to AMZ, and that's Amazon's managed services. So you'll be working with Amazon directly if you go that route, but they're very expensive. So they have a minimum fee of $35K per month. And I've been working with them recently. They also have $35K, upwards of 50 per order. So that's kind of a rich ask for my taste, but we do offer very low spend. So you can work with Canopy for 10K per month. We also have lower minimums if you're focused on retargeting.
One of the things I want to kind of point out here too is that beyond even like say the minimum ad spend is typically working with Amazon. And we know this because this is how they communicate. They're more interested in brand exposure and ad impressions than they are actually on conversions and profitability. That's kind of one of the biggest differences between working directly with Amazon, where they're willing to spend your money for sure. And they'll report back and they say, you're successful because your ad was seen by 50 million people, just arbitrary number there, right? But ultimately what you're going to ask next is, great, how much of that was profitable? How much money did I make? How much that was profitable? And they'll come back and say, wasn't that great? How many ad impressions we got for you? And you're like,
yeah,
not helping me here. So working with an authorized agency who manages this and has a focus on actual growing sales, which we've done very well at, and also focusing on the profitability of that ad type is a bigger difference, I think, as far as using an agency like Canopy that is authorized and has a great track record in DSP than to go to Amazon's own managed services.
Agreed. Yeah, that's the benefit of working with us. We just put you first, and of course, we dive in, and we're very flexible and very easy to work with. So yeah, fantastic. Cool. So again, want to reiterate that you can leverage the data to target exactly who you need to. So we're going to dive into how to go about that with some audience strategies. And this is where the fun part begins.
Okay, really quick poll here. Sorry, really quick check here back. If everybody's got their chat box open, who's following along so far is looking for a little bit more detail here. Give me a 1 in the chat here. Let us know that we're giving it the right pace and the right level of detail for you. Give me a 5 give me a 0 if you're completely lost, and that's okay. It is okay. All right, cool. Getting a lot of 1s in here, couple of 0s, and that's totally cool. Everybody's got to start somewhere as far as like getting the understanding and going through this a couple of times. So if this is your first exposure to DSP, welcome. It looks to me like most everybody is keeping up. Fantastic. Love you guys. Thank you. All right, go ahead, Erica.
Awesome. Yeah, it's really good information to know. And thank you guys for hanging in there. So it seems like you may not know exactly how it all works, but it's definitely important. It's definitely beneficial. And you can kind of you can see a light at the end. So I think you're going to like these next few sections where we talk about how to put it all together into an actual strategy. So to simplify it, I focus on 2 segments of the funnel. The funnel just being the audience journey. Are they even aware of your brand exists? Then they would be at the very top of the funnel, right? They're way out there in left field. Or if their consideration, they've been in aisle, they're interested in your particular category, then you're a little bit closer to purchase. If they're in aisle, they've seen your brand, they glanced at it, but it's at the bottom of the shelf, then they're almost there. And then of course, very bottom of the funnel, we're driving sales. They're already on Amazon, they're in the checkout page, okay? Right now with PPC, we're at the very bottom. And as you know, it's really competitive. Everyone's there at the bottom. For Q4, the prices per keyword is very expensive. Even DSP placements are expensive. So we want to break out of that smaller funnel, which is great for sales, but it's bad for competition. We want to get their attention before they get to that, before they get to the detail page and they're searching, right? So we have this entire space of the rest of the funnel to operate in, right? To show ads with the entire space of the internet to do that. Okay. So with the right strategy, you can capture their attention and drive them to your particular page for checkout. So I like to say, fill the tank and fill the bank. So filling the tank is
Nice.
refilling your funnel. Yeah. Really easy to remember. I thought of it one night when I was writing this up.
Show me the money.
Show me the money. Fill the tank first. You have to have a full funnel, someone that you can target, and then fill the bank, get them to cash out. So with your retargeting campaigns, these are sales driven. We have a metric of return on ad spend that we can measure and optimize for. And we start there. We target viewers. So we use the first party data to target your audiences. This is built off of ASINs. We're doing ASIN retargeting of viewers that have seen your product, but they haven't purchased yet. So they're still thinking about it. We want to target them first, get them to cash out. And then once we've exhausted the funnel, once we've targeted all of your audiences, we can start moving into brand awareness, start moving into the green section. Okay. So this is more focused on clicks and views, and we can optimize for that. This is middle, top of funnel, as I mentioned, and we're targeting your in-market segments. We're targeting lookalike audiences. Now, Amazon also determines who is in market with the buyer data. So this is proven to result in very high purchases. I have a case study that we'll cover at the end of the slide deck that is specifically brand awareness focused only. So you can see that you're still able to drive purchases if you're in a consideration campaign with a heavy awareness structure. So fill the tank.
Remind me on that analogy, Erica, on the grocery store analogy you're using. I thought that was awesome. Consideration is which piece again, where they're in the aisle?
Consideration, they know that you're aware and they know of your brand. They're thinking about a purchase.
Okay, so they're in their aisle. You're basically in that aisle that has your products, and they're actually looking at the wall of products. They see your brand. That's the consideration.
That's consideration, right?
Cool.
So, and brand awareness can be, there's all different levels, but that's where we want to target them, right? That's the next opportunity for us. So let's talk a little bit more about how to set up these audiences in cash out. So these are set up with your particular ASINs. So I always recommend having a few top sellers that we can promote and then generate audiences based off your ASIN data. So for retargeting, we are creating an audience of viewers within the last 30 days, within the last 60 days. We can go as far back as the last year. If they've seen your product and they've yet to purchase, we can target them. This works really well if you want to set up a cross-selling campaign and sell against your entire product line or inventory. If you have a very wide product line, you're doing a new launch. This ASIN doesn't have very many sessions. It's kind of lost in the crowd. On Amazon, you can promote it on display and use the power of all of your previous viewers to push traffic to that one ASIN. So that's really cool.
Is there any kind of like minimum conversion rate or something, kind of with like the rules as far as like what products would be better candidates than others as far as retargeting?
Yeah, so I always look at which products have a higher price point, at least $30 plus.
Okay.
Consumables work really well. As long as your particular product has high sessions of 1,000 plus sessions, we can launch profitably. Otherwise, I also look at creatives. So if you do have custom creative or a particular product that just looks great, it's going to be eye-catching enough to draw traffic back to Amazon.
So that includes like images and videos, for instance?
Images, videos, custom creative assets, for sure. That definitely helps with conversion.
Okay.
For another partner that I'm working with, he has several different categories within his product line. So we also look at which items are purchased frequently together, and we group their audiences via different categories. So it also depends on what type of product that you're selling, but that's typically what I look at. What I look at to determine these audiences. So yeah, a lot of options there. We can also set up a conquer campaign. These are a lot of fun. If you want to steal market share, we can set up particular audiences based on your competitors to steal their market share and drive traffic to your page.
I love the sound of that. That is something I've been teaching a lot this past quarter. So yes.
Awesome. Yeah, you can do it with DSP too. So that's pretty cool. All right. a little bit more about audiences. There's entirely new section where we can see audiences available with Amazon's data. So we can explore in market. The cool thing about this is in market is determined by Amazon for the appropriate look back window, or sorry, the appropriate purchase frequency for your product. So if you have a shampoo product, Amazon will look into the insights and say, well, that needs to be purchased every 30 days. And they'll determine who's in market for that 30-day segment. And it'll update every day, updates every 24 hours for the last 30 days. So you know that if you're targeting in market for your particular product, let's say, dog treats or puppy products, it's going to be accurate and that particular audience is in market.
So it's that timing element as far as that's one of the reasons why it's frequently working as far as subscribe and save, replenish kind of products, that it's obviously, if it's going out there and automatically saying it's like, oh, okay, they're coming up on time to re-up or basically get another order, and the remarketing kicks in and said, hey, you ready for your next one?
Yeah.
That actually works. That's fantastic. Okay, cool.
Absolutely. So if you're in a consumables product and you don't have a mechanism for driving traffic, this is a really easy win. You're leaving money on the table. And I also have a case study just for loyalty campaigns, because this is really popular and very profitable. And you just can't do that with sponsored display, right? You don't have that ASIN retargeting ability. So very good for consumables. And then if you have an entire product line, you can imagine how profitable that is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. And the cool thing is there's tons of these in-market segments with millions of shoppers per segment. So you can go very wide scope and still hit your target. Or if you want to narrow it down, you can layer in these audiences on top of each other to narrow the scope, which is pretty neat. So if you have a smaller budget, you want to really, if you know your audience persona, if you've done the research, right? Done your research for your audiences, you need to do that if you're exploring display ads, then you can apply it here and specifically search for demographics. It gets very granular. You can see, do they have kids at home? Do they have roommates? What's their age, education? All that can be layered in to refine your audience size and refine the segments.
Right. Now, to kind of speak to that a little bit, so when it comes to the standard ads that we have on Amazon, when I've talked about as far as like product positioning recently, I've talked about some of the limited demographics that are available inside of your brand analytics section of Seller Central. That will actually show you can put in your whole brand, or you can put in a specific ASIN, and it'll tell you, it's like, okay, this is, mostly men versus women. This is, an income range, where they're at, from a geographic standpoint. So there's limited demographic data that is there, that it gives you a little bit of insight as far as that persona or who your target audience is that's actually buying your product. It's true though, Erica, is that DSP's got a lot more of that.
Right. So we have more in-depth segments. In addition to that, I can pull, the best way to narrow it is to pull a overlap report, so that we can see of your selected audience, how many other audiences that Amazon's determined overlaps is most similar to yours. So they determine that with an affinity number. So as long as that affinity number is high, that's usually, we want to target the first segments that Amazon selects. So that would be my next recommendation.
All right. We do have a number of questions that are coming in. We will, I'll go ahead and address those toward the end. We just want to make sure that we get through all the dense information that we've got here first. So thank you for posting those into the chat. We'll take a look at those once we wrap up the presentation.
Okay, cool. All right. So let's get going. Cool. So even more insight to the audience segmentation. This is just an example. So I pulled up dog collar, and as you can see, the list is endless. It just goes on and on. So lots of opportunity here. If you need an audience audit, happy to do that for you and see what options you have for segments and targeting. So again, it's worth reiterating what the goal or ability of DSP is. You can also do that with your custom creatives, which will just touch on briefly, but if you don't have the creatives that Brian and I talked about earlier, custom video, you can still launch with Amazon's templates. So this is what they look like. On the left, you have your standard dynamic ad. You've probably seen these around. It's pretty cool. It has the badge, your reviews, and an add to cart button. So these convert extremely well because you're using Amazon's branding. And on the right is a half and half. So if you do want a little bit more control over your creative assets, you can bring the top half and they'll still supply the bottom half with that high click-through rate. So that's pretty cool. They provide that for you. So there's a lot of flexibility with your creatives. If you want to do a full custom build, here's an example of what that would look like. You get that nice long banner display on Amazon. And that's typically a strategy we recommend, is to have your custom creative on Amazon, and then off, you can use the Amazon brand to drive traffic in. Okay. All right. So for the folks that are interested in the data part, we're going to go in depth to the DSP reporting, so you know exactly what is behind the curtain and what metrics to look for. So you can see metrics all across the customer journey. They provide these really neat graphs, so you can see this in real time when you're pulling your DSP reporting. So for awareness, you'll look at impressions. You can see specific click-throughs for each site, for each creative size, and for each placement. So this is just one small portion of what's available to you. They provide a wealth of information on what's converting and what's getting click-throughs at every stage. So that's really good to see. So this allows you just to fine tune, and you can pull certain sites that are not converting. You can double down on what is working. And again, there's lots of different levers that you can pull, especially if you're going into those open exchanges. So that's why they provide so much information. But Amazon's also very good. Their algorithm is super smart, so it'll do some optimizations for you. But if you want to dive in and get a little bit more granular, you do have that ability and that option.
Okay.
Yeah, any questions on that?
No, I was going to maybe have you kind of reiterate as far as part of the parts of the funnel here that you're showing, the awareness, consideration, purchase. That's obviously not the whole funnel, but just kind of reiterate so that we understand the context of what the data is that's being shown. Presumably, of course, awareness is more about they've seen your ad in the first place, right? Mm-hmm. The consideration is when they've actually come through and they're actually on the product detail page, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. So this,
and then the purchase, of course, is that's where the money comes in. That's where, as you said, fill the bank.
Fill the bank. That's right. So you can see where they are in each stage per campaign. So if this is a purchase campaign focused on ROAS, then you'll look at the ROAS column and it shows you exactly how it's converting. And these are converting fairly high. And then you can see other metrics. So if you have one that is focused strictly on consideration, it's less sales driven, then you want to only focus on that particular column.
I think it's interesting too, as far as like the DSP will show as far as like the video starts and video completes. So in other words, if you're running a creative that is a video, this is very much the way that, like, say, YouTube operates and ranks content and gets visibility, is how many people are actually not just starting to watch your video, but actually watching it all the way through, right? And so this kind of gives you some feedback as far as how are your marketing videos doing. Now, there's a lot of different strategies that we can certainly recommend as far as what that video content should be. There's different styles depending on what your audience needs and the type of product that you offer. Tell me, as far as the first quartile rate, is that the ratio of the video starts completes, or is that a different metric?
First quartile is how many viewers have seen the first quarter of the video. And again, this is just a small section of what's available. The list goes on. So yeah, it's really good information to see. So, you know, are they getting the message of the video? Are they coming back to the detail page? You can see all that in one line. Cool.
All right. So in the chat, if you all give us a pulse again here, is this sinking in? I know some of these things is like, I have to go back and ask Erica a couple of times just to make sure that, like, I've got it straight in my head. So I want to make sure that you're observing this. Obviously, you can catch the replay and then go through this again. And of course, obviously, you can reach out to our team as well if it makes sense. But it looks like a number of you are saying, "Yep, it is." It's giving me the feels.
Good. I love it.
It's so far. Awesome. Nice job, Erica.
Yay, awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, cool. I would love to follow up with you guys and talk strategy any day. So let me know. I love talking about DSP topics and nerding out on it, and data, of course. So yeah, this is really good information to have. There are some optimizations that I can do to help drive more video. So those of you that are already running DSP, you probably want to drop your video percentages and then drop your Amazon viewability. So just throwing that out there. Okay, moving on. Pro tips. All right. So let's talk about what the results are. Reporting is great, but unless it's generating sales, it's just a bunch of numbers, right? So let's look at some results for a loyalty campaign. This is an example of a campaign for 4 months for consumable brands with repeat frequent purchases. So overall, the goal is, of course, to drive those repeat purchases and keep that consistent, which we are able to do with very low spend. This would be a campaign for each item. So as you can imagine, they have an entire product line, 1,000 each with the same results. So Q4 is really carrying the load here. There's a ton of spikes at the end in November. It's just spike after spike in sales. So we're expecting this to continue through next year. But overall, for 4 months, the average is at 8.46, which is fantastic. We also drove subscribe and saves by 24. So that's recurring revenue for several months for each of these products. So I always recommend launching profitable loyalty campaigns if you are a consumable brand. So again,
that's interesting, because usually what we're seeing on the Amazon, on the other ad types, getting a return on ad spend or ROAS of 3 to 4 is kind of the standard as far as what we expect to get in order to break even or get a little bit better than that. And so obviously when these are set up correctly, we can potentially drive up that return on ad spend. I do have a question here. So on the chart, for instance, it looks to me like you're running ads up through November 1st, November 2nd. And then this is basically saying that the ads are cut back, not running, but the sales are still dripping in. Is that correct?
Right. So the sales here at the end, those orange spikes, yeah, sales are still coming in.
Because they're basically attributed to the ads running previously, or those are possibly even over, I would assume, because the previous ads were running, that they're actually getting the checkout or even recurring sales.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's recurring sales. There's a little bit of a spike November 1st, right? So there's a small investment and then a drop, and that one day of investing, it was carrying the rest of the month, which is really awesome to see. So yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
And this is standard. This is a traditional loyalty campaign that you can see across the category or across their product line. So it's pretty standard for these to carry the load. But yes, as you mentioned, ROAS is usually lower for a larger campaign. So I do want to talk about brand awareness. And that's my next example here. What does a brand awareness strategy look like? And what do those results look like? So this is only a 1-month campaign. So these results are incredible considering there's very short window to optimize these and to recalibrate it. So the strategy was 70% in market, very aggressive in market targeting, and 30% retargeting. So we're filling up the tank very full with very bottom, only 30% budget going to those retargeting campaigns. Because they're a larger brand with a goal to get net new buyers and dominate the market. So they're leaning heavily on Amazon's first-party data to determine which segments to go after, solely using those segments to achieve these results. So you can trust their data, even if you want to go into aggressive spend into brand awareness, which we're doing here. So the challenge was, how do we heavily invest while keeping the ROAS high? So this is a one-time purchase. They don't have the loyalty campaigns to lean on and support them and kind of flux the numbers, which you can do. We all know you can change the numbers in reporting by just fudging a couple things, but here they don't have the loyalty to lean on. So it's truly just based on sales and the strength of their brand. And of course, Amazon results. But How we did it, that's my secret. Like that'll be another masterclass, but just know that we did it and we drove over 4 million impressions. Whereas if you're working with AMG, they're usually aiming for a lot more. We're able to do this quickly, 1 month, get results in, reach their goal and do it profitably. I also mentioned add to carts. So we have over 600 add to carts. So that's inventory just waiting to be checked out over the holidays. That's sitting in their checkout. So that's another metric that you can see with the DSP reporting.
Yeah, that is good. That's a really good education just for your overall advertising, just to understand buyer behavior, that it is normal for people to not simply just do a one-click checkout, but to consider things, consider their options, and come back. I know I do that all the time, where I'm adding things into the cart, and I'll purchase a few, and then I'll go and add a couple more, and then forget about it, and I'll come back a couple days later, and it's like, oh yeah, no, I totally forgot. I didn't actually order those. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Same thing. That's why I want to have that retargeting in place just to remind people, hey, don't forget to order. But yeah, we make it work. Whatever your goals are, we can come up with a strategy that's tailored for you and tailored for, the way the customer buyer journey will flow.
Cool.
So, all right. I guess we're almost wrapped up. Okay. So what brands are a good fit for Amazon DSP? There's some criteria that I look at. So if you're still on the fence, you're not sure, here's how to determine that. So first is, what are your goals? With any marketing strategy, if you're going to spend, look at what your goals are. Are you wanting to build awareness? Do you need more traffic to your website? Are you doing a product launch? Are you running out of placements on Amazon? So determine what the goals are, and then also what the budget is. We recommend a 10K spend, but we do have lower minimums if you are going into consumables. If you have large retargeting pools, we can start lower than 10. We recommend dollar for dollar spend, whatever you have with SD, to invest in DSP. Okay, so we want to match your sponsor display. Ideally, you're already maxed out with results there. If you have yet to do that, we can ramp up quickly and then discuss DSP. And then lastly, listings with reviews, at least 15. So you can use the review creative that we talked about earlier. That's going to help drive more clicks. Customers like reviews. And then top sellers, at least 3 for the launch, and then high sessions on that ASIN of 1 to 5,000. That's really it. Get in touch and I can do an ASIN, audience audit to get you started.
Okay. The criteria as far as high sessions, that actually was one of the early questions, as far as the difference that maybe Amazon communicates that there's a 5,000 minimum sessions to use DSP. But we're also seeing where we can run ads off of 1,000. Is that, have you seen that difference brought up before, as far as the difference between 1,000 and 5,000 sessions per month?
So of course you always want to have more sessions, but we don't have a session minimum. This is just a recommendation. I have launched brands with very low sessions, so it's perfectly fine. So if you have 1,000 per ASIN, we can still work with that. That's
cool.
Perfectly
Okay.
doable. Yeah. Awesome. All righty. So if you are checking those off the list, if you're a good fit, you can reach out to us. A couple other questions that I've seen from the group is, how is DSP different from Facebook, from other traffic sources, which we talked about a little bit earlier. But with DSP, you're not locked into just that one channel. You're able to reach all across the web. So that's the first major difference. And of course, Amazon knows what you buy. So it's just it's a different strategy. This is really designed for e-commerce Amazon sellers. So if this is your first exploration into display, or your first exploration into off Amazon marketing, this is going to be your best bet, because you get the Amazon branding, the Canopy expertise, the other benefits that I mentioned. So this should be your first exploration there. And then what's the cost? We already covered. Won't cover that again. So to wrap up, if you are a good fit or curious, you can reach out to us and we can do an audit for you.
Okay. All right. So obviously, thank you for that, Erica. Thank you for going through a lot of this. There was even parts of this that I was kind of like, it's like, okay, I haven't done it. I've been hands-on with, and there's other areas it's like I was familiar with, but it's good to kind of recap and get your perspective on this. I always love having that conversation with you because you just come in with this wealth of information that in an area that you're strongest in, obviously. So Erica, of course, is part of our Canopy Management Agency team. We're going to jump into some questions here, but I do certainly encourage Alex, if you would mind put the link for the Canopy Management URL into the chat so everybody can see it. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. This is mostly just this is going to be essentially an initial interview to see if it's a good fit. We don't work with everybody, but part of that is, we also want to make sure that you're put in good hands, that we can give you some kind of an assessment back as far as your advertising strategy and say, hey, here's where you're strong, here's where you're weak. And you can obviously, choose as far as like, okay, I'm ready to take this on, or maybe not quite yet. And that's cool. That's either way, it's fine. Now, I do encourage, because of some of the numbers that we've seen, some of the growth that we've seen with our partners using DSP. And Erica, I don't know if you want to speak at all as far as like some of the ranges that we've seen with DSP sales growth.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's going to vary completely based off of product niche. So maybe that's an unfair question.
it's really hard to determine because it just depends on the brand, the product, how long they've been on Amazon, if they're investing in other types of marketing, what their goals are, etc. But usually we start with a benchmark of 2 to 3 for the entire year, or a 3-month span. But that also includes your brand awareness, it includes your loyalty. So 2 to 3 is a benchmark, but this Q4, we're overall average is higher than 3.
Okay.
So I'll just throw that out there.
Okay, good. So, okay, quick poll before we jump into these questions. We got a bunch of questions that are great. I do want to get those addressed here. Some feedback for us and my guest Erica, of course, is give us a 5 in the chat if you got value out of this. Give us a 1 if you are if it's like just over your head. You're going to have to watch it again a couple of times to let it sink in. A lot of 5s. Love it. Thank you so much. All right. So keep those coming in here. We love that kind of feedback. Appreciate it. I'm going to go back up here and look at some of the questions and just start fielding those over to you, Erica, if that's cool. Somebody was asking as far as like, actually John was asking as far as like, can you please define what a session is?
Oh, sessions are views on the page, on your detail page.
Right. So it's basically, it's a shopper looking actually at your product listing. So that would be a session. There's a difference between views and sessions as far as the way Amazon does it. And sometimes they track it well and sometimes they don't. But yeah, a session is generally assumed that this is one single shopper that has viewed your product detail page. Now, if it's that same shopper that's come back and look at your same product 5 times in the last hour, it's still should only count it as 1 because it's the same shopper. So that would be the difference between a session and a view. Let's see here. Generally speaking, Daniel's asking, for consumables, do you also take in consideration the price point in DSP, or does it not matter?
Well, in order to invest, you want to ensure that you have a high enough price point so it makes sense. But we do work with a lot of consumable brands, typically at a $20 and above price point. So hopefully it's at least 20, then you'll be good.
Okay. All right. So some flexibility there, but generally 20 and higher is going to be better for retargeting. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Tala was asking as far as if we're doing white labeling with our DSP services through Canopy Management. I'm not sure if I know the answer to that question. I think it's a case by case.
We are not at this time.
We are not at this point. Okay. So it may be something where, obviously we've got the access and we have the experience. We've been running DSP for clients for more than a year. It's this is our second year, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But Oh, so actually, Alex already answered the question for Talal, and that was to reach out to our head of our sales department. I'm sure, obviously, we'll put that on Aaron to answer.
Well,
um,
if you are interested in a partnership, perhaps we can work with you. If you have clients that need support with their DSP, I'm happy to work with you on that directly. But we don't have a white label solution at this time.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. He was also asking, can you specifically retarget add to cart?
Ooh, that's a good, we cannot at this time, unless you have a ton of sessions and add to carts in the thousands, then yes, typically no.
Okay. Okay. So not quite there yet from Amazon's platform, but maybe something in the future we can look forward to. That actually is a great question, because that would be nice to be able to just start hammering them with ads. It's like, hey, you left this in here. Amazon will actually do that too. They'll send out an email saying, hey, by the way, you still have this product in your cart, and here's some other products to compete with it. But one of the questions as far as like qualification, as far as minimum ad spend that we generally work with, like you said, typically 10,000 in monthly ad spend is what we recommend as a good starting point. And we do have some flexibility up and down from there. The question that Richard was asking, is that 10K for all of advertising, or is it 10K spend specifically for DSP?
Oh, that's a good question. It would be specifically for DSP only. And then within that 10K spend would include all of your products and then the sales and consideration strategy together. But 10K would only be designated for DSP.
Right. And my recommendation on that is go ahead and contact us, Richard, because we're going to go in, we're going to assess the advertising that you're currently doing. Because of the success that we've had with DSP, it may be a better opportunity for you to actually to be investing more heavily into DSP if it makes sense for your particular brand and your particular kind of product. So let's have that conversation just to make sure that you get the right answer based off of your situation.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of hard to go into specifics on a live call, though. All right. So then, okay, that couple of questions were already answers. What split do you recommend between search and DSP? I would say that's gonna vary. I think we still see more heavy spend on the classic like 3P seller on Amazon. We see more heavy spend on the search side. But I mean, DSP is coming up so fast, and some of these we just see just skyrocket. I think I would say that it depends, on the product.
Depends on the product. It depends how much you want to spend. Usually industry standard is to match dollar for dollar, what you're already spending with sponsored display. So if you're spending high, then it would be, you could ramp up DSP just as high to match that. That's just kind of a quick industry calculation.
Now I will say, because I look at this, I see this every single day, is most brands that are selling on Amazon are only running about 15% of their capability when it comes to ad types, including the sponsored display ad types. So I would say that I'm going to qualify this and say, like, a lot of you are underutilizing sponsored display ads. So there may be more opportunity when you actually have an expert team that is actually looking at what you could be doing through DSP. We'll have some recommendations as far as what you could be doing through display ads as well, obviously with the focus still being on profitability. How does brand awareness work for a completely new product? And obviously related to DSP for, like, say, new product launches, for instance.
Product launches. Well, hopefully you're already an established, mature seller on Amazon for quite some time to have some sort of brand recognition. But you can launch new products leveraging your audiences. So we can generate new audiences based on your product line. So if you have a wide product line, we pull them all together and create a look back window from the last year, right? So we can gather sessions for the last year, for all buyers, for all viewers, and start there. But also depends on your goals. If you're wanting to launch the next best, puppy treat or eyeglasses, and you want to dominate the market, then you got to start somewhere. And you can also launch with more aggressive goals, just like we looked at a little bit earlier with the brand awareness strategy. So the best way to get found and to generate brand awareness for a new product, start with what you have. And then if you're ready to aggressively launch, you can tap into those market segments, but you can do both.
Okay, good answer. Thank you. Next one, and we're wrapping up to the last couple of questions. So if you've got a burning question here, make sure you get that into the chat so that we get that addressed, because we're going to close up. Man, this is definitely not going as long as I usually put these things on. I'm usually an hour and a half, 2 hours long. So thank you, Erica, for keeping it succinct, keeping it sharp. Appreciate that. I know this is a tough topic for a number of people, and some of you are just loving the information. I definitely appreciate the feedback. So that's fantastic. How do you, let's see here. How do you decide how much spend into consideration and how much into conversion or purchase? I mean, as far as the funnel goes, okay, so split between awareness and retargeting. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. So it's more of a question, Lars is asking, as far as it's more of a question of, are you investing in the ads that are more of just kind of broadcast or retargeting, versus retargeting?
It depends on your budget and goals again. So retargeting will run out eventually. That's the fill the bank. We need to fill it up somehow. We need to target a market and go into consideration areas. So usually what I recommend, start with heavy on purchase. That's like a 75% purchase, 25% exploring these in-market segments just to kind of see how they convert, especially if you have a very small budget or you're just kind of trying it out. But then month 2 and 3, we want to flip it and we want to go aggressive and heavy on in-market consideration. So you can start to kind of get your corner of the market, right? Because we're thinking big brand awareness. So 75% there with a very small retargeting pool, because we've already kind of squeezed the juice out of that and it needs to be refilled. So the strategy switches about halfway through.
Okay, very good, very good. Let's see here. I think this is probably the last question. And Richard, your question as far as like fees and some of the other ways as far as our process and everything, obviously we can share that on the conversation with you because it's going to be adapted to what situation you're in. So let's see here. So the question is, any restriction on what cannot be advertised via DSP? Supplements, ointments, drug paraphernalia? No, I'm kidding.
Definitely not that. Yeah, there's certain things that we can't promote. There's a list. There's certain words that we can't say for supplements that will get declined, as I'm sure that you know if you're in the supplement space. Yep. But I do work with a lot of supplement brands and they're doing very well, especially Q4. I mean, it's awesome to see. Nothing I can think of. One note kind of products you're talking about specifically. Maybe.
Well, okay, so here's kind of a general test that Amazon likes to do, right? It's the appropriate content kind of test, and essentially what they call it is it's internally they actually call it the over-the-shoulder test. So think of it this way: if you had a product, and it's one thing to be shopping on Amazon and you're looking at a product as the engaged shopper and you'd be able to see ads and see a product, right? But if that ad is then being broadcast to other websites who have different audiences, who have different, different ages of audience, different sensitivities of that audience, generally what's going to happen is that if the person who is on an external website and that retargeting ad pops up, if somebody like a child, for instance, is looking over their shoulder while they're on that website, and that person would be embarrassed by that image showing on that site that they're on, that's probably going to be blocked from advertising. So that's one of those kind of things where that can be anything from, well, more adult topics typically, and more things about, personal, vanity and personal appearance, and some of these things where somebody might be embarrassed simply by somebody else knowing what their point of view is or what kind of products that they're shopping for. It's one thing if it's an orange slicer versus, something else that may not be,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we
You
can
have
get
to be
creative as far as the
careful.
kind of products that might show, but
Yeah, you have to be careful with some of the lifestyle content if you're exploring those creative assets, right? Be careful
right.
with that and just follow best practice. The thing about creatives with DSP is they'll go through a manual approval process. Someone on Amazon will look through the creatives and then determine, okay, yes or no. So you have to add an extra time for that process and the turn time. Um, but I know that you can't talk about adult topics or even some religious topics, and the list goes on.
Yeah.
But one cool thing about there's a selection for APS, which is the Amazon Publishing Services Exchange, which is Amazon's choice selected and vetted inventory. So as long as you're publishing on APS and your ads are approved, they have a little bit more, they have a higher brand safety level. So you're safe to publish in those exchanges. And they also convert extremely well. That's about 2/3 of the inventory is Amazon's own inventory. So.
Okay, cool. Erica, I'm going to have you stop sharing the screen there so that they can get a good look at your pretty face as we close out here. Yes, I'm embarrassing you probably. Sorry. So, thank you everybody for being here today. I don't know if there's anything closing that you want to add, Erica. Obviously, you covered a lot already.
Yeah, covered a lot, but I'm more than happy to dive in deep and answer any questions that you have. My email's on the screen, or you can get in touch with our sales team and they can make a warm intro, and happy to discuss further. I love nerding out on these topics, as I said.
Nice. Very good. Very good. Thank you everybody for joining us today. Please give Erica some love here as we close out here. Let her know that you appreciate her coming on and teaching this workshop today. Thank you again, Erica, for being here. I appreciate you. And thanks everybody else. We will talk to you soon. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Love it.